Alrighty, hello and welcome to the Coaching Collective podcast episode. We're not quite sure.
We don't know.
We have a wonderful new guest, Maddy Cornford. So, give us a little bit of a rundown, an introduction as to maybe what you're doing here in the first place, what your interests are, what you're doing just in general. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm doing here, we haven't, as we're recording this, we haven't actually announced anything.
Yeah.
I've just kind of suddenly appeared in the office. I'm the newest coach here at the Coaching Collective.
Woohoo!
Woo! I start coaching in the new year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing here. And what do we want to know about me? Everything.
All the dirty little secrets.
Oh gosh, we've got a full hour to expose me. Yeah, so my interests are obviously the gym. I competed. Well, we'll start with like how I got into the gym, I guess.
Yeah.
My dad actually got me into the gym with our little home setup.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Adorable. Everyone has that like crusty old bench they have in their garage.
Literally.
So that was how I started. Just doing like whatever my dad was doing. He set me little workouts and whatnot.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So I was doing that for like 2 years before I joined an actual gym with my mum.
What age was this?
I think I started 16.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I started with like the Kayla Itsinas.
I always thought her last name was Itsigns.
I could be so wrong right now.
No, I'm pretty sure you're right. Have you seen, off topic there, have you seen the whole scandal that's happening right now with her?
No.
Oh, there's a scandal. Anyways, that's a topic for another day.
Ooh. Where was I up to?
Started at the gym, like actual gym.
Oh, yeah. So I started at my first Anytime Fitness, which was this like tiny little gym. And yeah, basically from there, I would like buy the, Taylor Katie, like big booty.
Oh,
Yeah. So
the
like
fads.
all the
6
fads.
weeks grow bunda challenge, which is like physiologically like impossible.
And I did not grow a fat bunda. I to this day do not have a fat bunda. It's been years. So yeah, I went through that phase, and then I signed on with Michael. Well, actually, I signed on with a coach mid 2022.
And that was your first ever like one-on-one coaching
Yeah.
experience? Okay.
Yeah, and that was really good. It was when I decided to become a bit more competitive that I signed on with Michael. And we've been coaching ever since January 2023.
Oh my god, it's nearly like the 1 year anniversary.
I know. How cute. It's like I'm signing on with you guys after a year.
Oh yeah!
Aww.
Now people are going to be like, I've been on with you for 2 years. Why aren't I a coach?
Where's my contract? Yeah, so we competed in our first bodybuilding season this year. Started prep in May, and my last show was in November. Just did a nice old 20, I think that ended up being like 26 weeks or something. So that went really well. And
Which is
lit. Now we're looking forward to a nice long off season.
And then IFBB Season 8 2025.
Oh yeah. Next
I don't
level.
know whether or not you've like announced that yet, but
I think I
we
like
have now.
slid it into a photo dump.
oh,
Gorge.
beautiful. Alrighty, so the whole idea behind this podcast was to touch quite a bit in regards to like the competitive side of everything. A more female podcast, because I feel like that is something that is obviously missing. Only sort of the couple of episodes that I have done or been included in on. I think really the only heavy female biased episodes we've done is like my personal one and the female PED one that we did very early on with Darian Bates. But we may as well jump straight into the questions. So we're going to run through a little bit of like a Q&A. We have questions from both our Instagram accounts that are all meant to be sort of prep related. And then hopefully people can resonate with this. You can provide insight into like how your prep went, how your like off season, your plans, etc., whatnot, what you think has helped you, and then I obviously will run through the same thing, as well as a little bit of a comparison in regards to my first prep with this prep. So yeah. Thanks, Anicia. I know we shout you out on like every podcast in which we ask photos, but thank you photos questions. But thank you very much for all the questions. First one being, how do you know if you've recovered after comp?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like the biggest, well, obviously, like you gain weight back, you start looking like a normal human being again. That's a good sign. But for me, one of the biggest signs that I was like deep in prep was how brain fogged I was. And
like no one's home.
No one's home.
No one's home.
If you talk to anyone that was like near me during the end of my prep, it was like having a conversation with a brick wall.
Yeah.
Or like a toddler.
Yeah.
Like I could not string a sentence together.
Like the one-word answers.
Oh, it was ridiculous. So I'd say one of the biggest like signs that I've recovered is that like I can hold a conversation again. I can actually like think critically. I find it easier to concentrate as well. Yeah.
Do you find cognitively in regards to like your studies, you've seen a massive improvement with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, by the way, tell them what you're studying.
Oh, I'm also studying dietetics at university. I have one more placement to go and then I'll hopefully be a registered dietitian.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Yeah, so you had to study through prep.
Yes, I did have to study through prep, which was a bit of a not dumb decision on my part. I just didn't
maybe not the smartest of all of them.
I just did not foresee how brain fogged that would get. So
yeah, I think people often neglect when people talk about the ramifications that come with prep. Obviously, you have the more physical effects like lowered energy, fatigue, whatnot. But I think what's often neglected is the mental side of everything.
Yeah.
Even like obviously like things regarding cognition or like mood and irritability. Like, sorry, I don't care how much you say like you choose to obviously be in prep, and like I'm very much so trying to have that mindset this prep, but like it's still inevitable that you are going to see an increase in regards to things like irritability. Like,
yeah, for sure.
so I think people forget about that, especially when it comes to relationships. Like if you're in prep, I can almost guarantee you that there is going to be like a couple minor hiccups within your relationship, whether that be like with a partner, friends, family, especially if they aren't in the industry and they don't really understand.
Yeah.
But yeah. Back to the recovery.
We'll go. Yeah. But yeah, mentally for me, the brain fog was like the biggest sign. And especially given how much I've improved, I think I've been out of prep for, what date is it?
Today's the 22nd of December.
Oh, so just over 2 months. Sorry, my last comp was October, not November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just over 2 months. And cognitively, like I was still quite slow for a while, like during the reversal period. And it's only sort of like in the past couple of weeks I've started noticing it come back together.
I was going to ask you whether or not you saw like an instant increase, like an instant improvement from that, or whether or not it was like something that had to sort of slowly improve.
It was definitely not instant for me, which I really expected it to be a lot more instantaneous than it was. Yeah.
I would say recovery from me, or even for like everyone, specifically female, would obviously be like the restoration of your menstrual cycle, which is completely individualized, dependent on whether or not like you've on birth control, what sort of your previous like menstrual cycle looked like prior to the prep as well. But obviously that coming back, I would even dig a little bit further into that and not even just say like the presence of a bleed, but more so the presence of ovulation. Obviously we know that you can bleed without ovulating. That's what happens when you're on the pill. So I would say that tracking ovulation, seeing that occur and come back would be like one of the biggest signs in regards to just general like well-being and health. obviously post-comp weight gain, but still managed in a way that doesn't then flip around and have like an adverse effect, if that makes sense, which is something that even happened to me post-show, whereby the weight gain did accrue too quickly. And then obviously like blood markers, everything like that, having a coach that can understand and interpret these markers alongside like anything else that you're experiencing. One of my major things was when my hair stopped falling out. So like post-reversal, one of the biggest signs for me in regards to recovery was like my nails getting super, super strong, and my hair not falling out, as well as like an improvement in digestion, I would say, is recovery. Like inevitably you're going to be impacting your digestive health due to such sort of limitation to like food sources that you are consuming. So in the reversal period, generally a lot of people say if they are eating off plan, introducing like gluten, dairy, whatnot back into their diets, they do a little bit of harm. So seeing that improve like post-reverse diet as well. Not to mention like strength. I found that it did take a few weeks out of my reverse to see like a genuine increase in strength, whereby it wasn't just like I felt like going to the gym a little bit more. It was like I was actually making progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would consider recovered. Even like mentally in regards to relationship with food too, I would say a massive thing in regards to recovery is getting back to a point whereby there aren't any unhealthy sort of mental things going on with food. So like there's no wanting to binge, there's no like anything like that. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I think for me, during prep, in terms of like relationship with food, it was fine.
Yeah.
Because it was very much like I have a meal plan.
Yeah.
If I eat off said meal plan, then like there's ramifications. Exactly. You will not place as well, to put it blandly.
Yeah.
But it's sort of, I found when I was going into my reverse, or like literally the day prep ended, it's like this mental block is released.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I eat off plan, it doesn't matter as much because like I don't have competition.
Yeah. And it's like, that's the most sensitive time where it like matters the most.
I know. And I feel like everyone has to go through that with their first prep.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. I feel as though, and one of my biggest worries post-show, post-reverse diet was feeling as though because my reverse didn't go as well as I thought, and I had this thing in my mind, and after the first couple of weeks of my reverse, I think it exacerbated how I reversed out like for the remainder of it, because it was stuck in my mind that, oh my God, I'm not built for this. Like I'm not made for this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
I had like 2 meals off plan. Like, oh my God, I ate like an ice cream. Like I'm not made for this. And then in my I was like, oh, if I'm not made for this, like floodgates are open. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
I think something that is incredibly important, and I've seen so many successful bodybuilders like Meg Sylvester and like Olympians and whatnot talk about this on their YouTube channels, explaining that like when they first started, they had periods whereby it was like months of just like off-plan eating and like not navigating things as well as they could. And now you look at them and they're like flawless with everything.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like I would consider reversing a skill.
Definitely.
Obviously it's dependent on the person and like your previous sort of relationship with food, but I would say just like anything, the more you do something, the more you know how to approach it, the better you become at doing it. So I wouldn't write yourself off after like one reverse.
Yeah.
You know? And I know how to handle it going out of like my next show.
Yeah. And definitely like as a first time competitor myself, and probably a lot of first time competitors listening, don't be so harsh on yourself if you didn't reverse perfectly.
Yeah.
God knows I did not reverse perfectly. It was not a very graceful process in the first couple weeks. And you almost like learn, like you said, it's a skill to almost like stick to plan again, because your hunger cues start going back to normal. You don't feel like you're constantly fucking starving.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well, although you obviously want to sort of approach every single day being, I want to give this day 100%, I want to stick to everything, because you are so sensitive during that period of time. You also have to still like show up the next day even if you do muck something up. And I think keeping communication high with your coach is also like extremely imperative regardless of what's going on. Ensure that you're checking in, ensure that you're staying accountable, and whatnot.
Staying honest more than anything.
Yeah. And like even honest with yourself too in regards to like things that you're doing. But either way, I feel like even if it doesn't go exactly to plan, or if it goes like not to plan like at all, I think it is super important to remember that it does take time, especially if you haven't done like really strict dieting beforehand. And you haven't done like really strict weeks or like mini cuts or whatnot that you've had to reverse out of, and you have no experience. It can be harder, but bounce back.
That's interesting, because I was even saying to Michael recently how before, I think we tried a however long deficit, and I wasn't even particularly adherent during like just a normal cut, and then we sort of like threw me in the deep end with prep. We were kind of like, I should be right. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, I wouldn't encourage that, by the way. But yeah, sometimes when you're in prep, it's so much easier because you have such a like big tunnel vision goal. Nothing else feels like an option. But yeah, almost like applying that mindset to your reverse, or sort of channeling that, you know, bodybuilding prep when you're in your off season, or you might be doing like a mini cut or something like that.
So that you are a little bit more experienced in regards to what prep adherence looks like, and so you know what it feels like as well, because even prior to my prep, I'd done dieting phases whereby like I was still eating off plan, like like once a week, like me and Michael would go out for dinner like once a week or whatnot, or if like my steps were like 5 down and I was laying in bed, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. But prep is just like completely different. So I do think it is really important for you and your coach to go through some really strict phases whereby you do mimic what it is like in prep.
Because it is extremely different to like just doing a little bit of a balanced lifestyle. There is nothing that is balanced about prep. Literally. It's like you want to go out too damn bad.
Literally. Alrighties. Next question. Alright, Anicia also asked, is it normal for my body to be stubborn with fat loss and plateau quickly in a prep/deficit? I feel like there are so many variables that determine this. Obviously, like the deficit that you are in. When it comes to females, understanding at what specific time in your cycle you may see a little bit of a fluctuation, and whether or not that fluctuation is because you are holding onto body fat, or whether or not like visually you're seeing improvements but you're just like hyperfixated on the number, and whatnot. The biggest thing for me, I have realized this prep so far, and like I usually lose fat I would say quite easily. I don't know. I say quite easily and then compare myself to people who it literally just like falls off.
Well, I feel like you've leaned out quite quickly this prep.
I feel like it hasn't taken me long, however, so far. But I feel like it really just depends on the person. Other contributing things, like I mentioned, for me specifically, this prep I feel like has been stress, which I've never experienced before. Like in my last prep, I wasn't that stressed. Like I was really busy, like PTing and traveling between like so many locations, but I was never like biting, like chewing the inside of my face the whole entire day because I was so stressed, which I've only come to realize the last couple of days that I really, really need to manage and get on top of. And I guess that applies for, say, if like you are someone who is extremely stressed as well. But in regards to plateau really quickly in a prep or deficit, I would say no. like if you have a week whereby you don't see a drop in the scale and maybe you don't see many physical changes, it's definitely not the end of the world. Like that's
Yeah.
sort of catered, that's like factored into your prep, that not every week you're going to see these like 800-gram drops or whatnot. However, if you are going, say, like more than a week or like 2 weeks whereby like nothing changes and you do have body fat to lose, then obviously you would make an adjustment.
Yeah.
But it really depends on the person, what their health looks like as well. And yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think touching on what you said before with sort of like comparison as well, because not dropping fat as quickly, it's sort of like in regards to what or to whom.
Yeah.
Probably the worst thing you can do in a prep is compare yourself to other people, because genetically we lose fats at different rate, and especially where we lose fat from. I personally lose fat last from my stomach and constantly...
So different. Actually, no, I've got fat arms.
Oh,
Quote
yeah.
Michael.
He's quite harsh. But yeah, for me, like during my prep, I would constantly be like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm making progress, because this part of me that needs to be so slimline by the time I get to stage is just really fucking holding on. So definitely taking into account that genetically we have very different fat distributions. And trust your coach more than anything. You're probably on the right timeline.
You have foggy goggles on when you're in prep as well.
Exactly. You will never see yourself as clearly as someone else can. Literally the best advice I can give to anyone is trust your coach, as long as they're not like absolutely
nuts. Even touching on that, like with you, it was quite difficult because I remember Michael would send in photos to our group chat and be like ask for whatnot. Because criteria wise, with the natural federations, they don't, and even federations in general, a little bit more so with the natural federations, because you really don't see bikini awarded for having tie-ins that are equivalent to, say, IFBB tie-ins.
Yeah.
But your glutes and hamstrings leaned out so quickly, but like the lower stomach and a little bit around the delts struggled to come off. And it was this like game of weighing up, do we keep pushing and pushing for hardness through her delts for the lower stomach to come in a little bit more, but that means that she is going to have these like, when I'm talking like pointed, I'm talking they were like etched out tie-ins.
I should insert a photo here.
Literally. It was like V's. And I'm like, she can't have that.
No.
So it is hard. But yeah, definitely don't compare yourself to other people in regards to progress. Something else that is so important to keep in mind if you are prepping, and like I even have to still remind this to myself, is just because someone looks good on social media does not mean they fit the criteria.
You said this to me early in my prep, and it was something I so tried to keep in mind as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a best physique composition. It is who fits the criteria. They can look freaky on Instagram. They can post videos of them having like striated delts. They can look like so jacked on Instagram, whatnot. Half the time you see them in person, they don't even look like that.
We all look like string beans in the end, I assure you.
Literally. But at the same time, it's like, it's not about that. Like, your eye isn't exactly the same as the judge's eye. So you, like, these judges, especially like IFBB judges or judges in which like natural federations, they fly them around and whatnot, to keep consistency with the judging panel. They know exactly what they're looking for, like, and they can just flip you around like that. They know who's placing, they know what they're looking for. And more often than not, you'll see the people who look wicked on Instagram, they don't place well at a show. They'll be too lean. They're not what they're looking for. So I think that's so important. It is not a best physique. It is a who fits the criteria best.
Yeah. And I think another thing is, if you're following someone throughout their prep on Instagram or whatever, you see them at the posing workshops and they look like crazy. It also depends on the day, because your physique when you're flat as all shit is going to look so different when you're carved up, and depends on how the coach does it as well. Like the coach might do a bit of a shit job and they end up like spilling over or whatever.
Exactly.
So honestly, there is no point whatsoever in comparing yourself because you never know how someone's going to look on the day.
Yep.
Or even like who's going to show up because not everyone's on social media posting about it.
Literally, and like what if they fall down the stairs and break a leg and they're not there anymore?
Touch on wood that no one gets hurt.
Touch wood, that happens to no one. Because like at the end of the day, you do want to be standing against like the best of everybody.
Yeah.
But like it's so true. Like, and there are so many people that you won't see that are also competing. And like even I remember standing backstage pumping up for one of my shows thinking, I saw her on Instagram, she does not look anything like she did. And it was instant like, why the heck have I like lost so much peace comparing myself to somebody over social media? The easiest thing to be manipulated and like the easiest way to distort what you truly look like. Why am I comparing myself to that? You know?
And it's also like people that weren't even in my category, division,
not even
whatever.
in your height class, and you're like, oh, phew.
Honestly, I see a girl that's like looking insane. I'd be like, oh, she's in fitness. It's all
Literally, because you'll be like, I'm not lean enough. Hold on.
Yeah.
She's doing figure.
Thank God.
Literally. I think let's jump onto a new one. Did you have any good questions? What were your questions?
One.
Did Chase submit a photo?
Yeah.
Oh, of course he did. Thanks, Chase.
Shout out to Chase. I didn't even know you could submit photos.
I didn't realise that either.
Okay, the one that isn't from you is...
I've got one here from Julian. Read it. That I'm not going to read on this podcast, but
Some
Julian...
things we need to keep a bit more due.
Thanks for the... Not even a question. Thanks for the statement.
Okay. From Izzy. What are a few things you want people to know when it comes to prepping/reversing?
Who said that? Oh, when you said Izzy, I was like, I didn't say that. I said
Another
something.
one. There's too many Isabels happening.
Yeah. Prepping and reversing. Oh, there is so much to know.
I know.
There is so much to know. I feel like just prepping in general.
It's not easy. It's not glamorous.
Yeah, I think something to focus on is just giving each individual day 100%. Especially when you're like deeper in it and things start to get hard. Don't focus on like, oh, I'm this many weeks out. I've got to do this for this many weeks. It's you wake up, you know exactly what you have to do that day. All you have to do is tick those boxes.
Quite literally.
And then the next day comes.
If it helps, make a checklist for each day.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I got to a point where I started doing that. It's like, steps done, cardio done.
Cry,
whatever.
tick.
Cry 3 times daily.
Literally. Another thing as well, something that I'm trying to really encompass in this prep is enjoy it. Like I sat in my off season and like through my holding phase, like 2 to 4 weeks out from my prep, and I was like, I just can't wait. Like just get me in there. And now that I'm in here, occasionally I'll have times whereby like I have to remind myself, I'm like, I asked to be here. I sat on the edge of my seat waiting to start this. Like, fucking enjoy it. And I literally was on the treadmill this morning and I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, you get what I mean? Because, like, you think 25 weeks, however long you're prepping for, is a long time. But, like, it flies.
It is
like,
not.
Yeah, especially the first, like, 15, 10 weeks, whatnot. Like, it literally disappears. Like, I'm pretty sure I've been prepping now for, like, 9 weeks. Like, what the heck?
I feel like
Where
you
has that
started
gone?
yesterday. And also, just touching on that about how quickly it flies, especially towards the end when you're sort of like doing mock peak weeks and that sort of thing, I almost didn't realize how much of the prep that would take up.
Yeah.
And that might have even just been like specific to my prep because I was like ready a little bit early.
Yeah.
It almost made me be like, oh, you know, I kind of wish I like pushed more at that midpoint in my prep when I was struggling a bit.
Yeah.
And just sort of like keep in mind all of your prep is important. You don't sort of like fly through the first 14 weeks or whatever and just really push for the last 10 or 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like all of it really contributes to your physique in the end.
Yeah, it's not like you get to a point and you think, oh, fuck, I need to make up time. I should now, like, try 100% with everything. It's like, no, like, if you're on the treadmill or if you're doing cardio, your heart rate is, like, 1 beat out, like, you go harder. You get what I mean? Like, it's every single day is 100%. It's not the first 10 weeks I'm cruising. Like if my food's 5 grams over, like it doesn't matter. Like it's 100% the whole way through. But yeah, like I feel like when you recognize and you remind yourself that like you asked to be here, like it's like literally a privilege that you're doing it. And it was completely your decision. You cop everything. Everything's your responsibility. If something's shit, it's your fault. Like once you, I feel like, take that mindset on, and realize that like the show day is such a little part of it. Like the best and the most gratifying part is like the day in, day out hustle. I feel like you really enjoy it. Like I've not had a single day whereby I've thought, I don't want to be in here. You know? Like every single day I get into bed and I'm like, you know what? Everything prep related, I really enjoyed. Like, even if it was like a session that wasn't as good or whatnot, I'm like, you know what? Like, I quite enjoyed that. Work, maybe not so much. But like,
skip those 8 hours.
But like everything else.
Yeah, definitely. I won't say same because there were definitely some days in prep where I was like, fuck, why am I doing this to myself?
No. Yeah, you do get those days. But like for most of it, I would say like it's,
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a difference between moving from your first prep to your second prep.
Is realizing that.
Like you understand some days are going to be so shit.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to feel the best 100% of the time. But it's like even when you do get those shitty days, it's like, I'm still doing this. And like you can still be proud of yourself.
And I feel like the shitty days where you really have to push are the days in which you like show yourself what you're capable of. And the reward from that is so much higher than the cruisy days.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, oh, fuck, like I actually can do this. Like I can go on like autopilot and get everything done without even thinking about it. Like I don't sit and think, I'm not going to do this. It's like, I don't want to do this, but like, I'm not going to not do it. Like you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is a very big thing in regards to like reflection back on your first prep, because I feel like that's something that comes with the experience.
Yeah.
It isn't something that you know, it isn't something that you can, I don't think like fully comprehend prior to starting your first prep. I feel like you have to prep, go through it, reflect back, and then realize that like you should enjoy most of it.
Yeah. Tentatively most.
Literally.
But yeah, I think coming back to that point that it is a skill. It's something you learn. You do it more than once, you come at it better the next time.
Yeah, literally. Another question, is it normal for weight to fluctuate up and down in a prep/deficit even when eating the same? Absolutely.
Yeah, especially if you're a woman, you're going to see your weight fluctuate.
Yep. I eat the same thing, and I always say this to clients. I eat the same thing every single day. I will have like, for example, when I start my bleed, I can almost guarantee I'm at least 1.5 to 2 kilos heavier on the scale. My third day in, I drop down. Yep. Sometimes I hit new lows on my third or my fourth day as well.
I always found that as well.
Yeah. And then like ovulation, I see a small spike, like 400 to maybe like 800 grams as well, outside of the normal.
Yeah.
If I eat a little bit later, weight goes up. No, it's not fat. If you eat later, it's just your weight goes up. You literally have just not digested your food or like pooped it out or whatnot. Yeah, like hydration, sodium, I would say not so much, because I track, and in prep, like people sort of track their sodium intake.
Yeah.
Stress, heat.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. Like it is so normal. I have clients whose body weight does not fluctuate. Like it's like pew down.
Must be
or
nice.
It's like pew perfectly upwards. And then I've got others that are like woo. Like mine's crazy.
Yeah.
I never look at the scale and I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want to do this anymore because it's fluctuated upwards. I look at it, it's a kilo heavier when I'm on my period, and I'm like, oh, I know why. I don't give a flying heck. Like, move on.
Yeah. And weight is something, especially in a prep, like you need to not take personally in the slightest, because you're going to get on there every day. Of course, it's going to fluctuate up and down. I remember like in the earlier points of my prep, I would like not lose weight for a certain period of time, or like I would feel so hungry and I'd wake up and I'd either be the same weight or heavier.
Oh, that's the worst.
Are you kidding?
That is the worst. going to bed starving, thinking, I'm going to be so light, I'm going to hit a new low, and then you wake up and you're like heavier, and you're like, that's not how it works.
It's literally like, how did that even, this is defying physics, whatever.
Literally.
Oh no.
Our camera battery just died.
No.
That's all right. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Keep everyone entertained.
Should I sing them a song?
Yeah, sing everyone a song. Okay, we're back. I just moved the camera. But yeah, I know. It is, you know what, but I will say, and this applies to lifestyle people too, it's okay to celebrate if your body weight goes down and you're in a deficit phase. Just like it's okay for you to celebrate if you see your body weight rise and like you're trying to put on fat or you're trying to put on muscle. Like those things are okay. Like it's okay to acknowledge that your plan is working.
Yeah.
It's not okay for you to adjust your plan because you've been disheartened by what it says. I think that's really, really important to remember because like things take time.
Yes.
If I threw the towel in every time my weight came back with something, I would probably be 200 kilos right now.
Yeah.
This couch that I'm sitting on would not be on stilts. It would be on the floor.
The whole floor, the whole level.
Yeah.
Straight to the ground.
Literally.
Yeah, and especially as a woman, I feel like most of our listeners to this episode will probably be women.
Yeah.
Don't bother getting disheartened. Just, it's like dating. You know, it's got to go up and down. You can't take it personally.
It's a little bit good.
Just keep trotting on, you know,
Yeah.
stick to the plan.
Exactly. And I think as well, the more you weigh yourself, the more you understand how your body works, especially from like the menstrual cycle perspective, the less emotion you attach to it. Like people always say, I don't want to stand on the scales, like, actually, and people never really say this to me, but like I've had a couple of times people be like, oh, I don't really want to like stand on the scale daily. I want to do it once a week. And I'm like, once a week, we get no average from that. You could have gone out on Sunday night, eaten whatever the frig you wanted, get on the scale, 3 kilos heavier, but it doesn't give us a reflection of what your average is for the week. And when you weigh yourself daily and you do get those averages, one, it's so much more accurate, but two, again, you desensitize yourself because you understand that even if your weight spikes up, it doesn't mean that the whole entire average is going to be like, that's what your weight is.
Yeah.
Because like the next day you may drop a kilo or something like that. Average comes down. So yeah, I feel like the scale is such a handy piece of data.
Yeah, for sure.
Amongst many other pieces of data like progress photos and whatnot. But yeah.
Yeah. One thing I always found during prep, or even now actually, if I hit a new low, lose half a kilo, whatever, can guarantee the next day you're not dropping more weight.
Yeah, literally.
It'll go up like 300 grams or something.
Something I found in this prep for myself is last prep I did, the weight seemed to come off extremely evenly each week. This time around, I don't know if it is the stress. I will have weeks whereby I'll drop like 300 grams and I'll be like a little bit disheartened.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop me from doing anything. But like, I feel like weighing yourself in prep is slightly different from like the disheartening perspective because like you're literally chasing.
Yeah.
And then I'll have weeks like the next week where like I'll drop like 1.2 kilos. Whereas my last prep, it was like even like 700-800 grams like every single week, which is odd. But like, yeah, your body is not a machine. It's not a machine. We don't like program the plan in and we're guaranteed this weight to come out. Like,
yeah.
I think people forget that as well.
Exactly.
It's not like you're at a vending machine and you know what the outcome is. Like, you get a Pepsi Max, Pepsi Max comes out, you know?
Yeah, so you just can't be sensitive about it. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. All right. Did you have any other questions?
Me? Let's have a look. Nah, man, mine's a bit dry today.
Yeah, everyone's a bit slow.
Well, we did put it up like
Literally 10 minutes ago.
after everyone's gone to work.
Literally. Another question is, How to best get out of that competition mindset and just enjoy the experience. I like the competitive mindset. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If I do find, like, mindset wise, if you're getting so consumed to the point whereby you're not enjoying it, you need to, like, reevaluate. But I feel like if you're really consumed in the prep and you're not enjoying it, and, like, things aren't going badly, like, I don't know, maybe you're not meant to prep. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
I think a competitive mindset can be, like, both a positive and negative thing.
Yeah.
So for me, like, the way I interpret that is if a competitive mindset is negative for you, you're probably comparing yourself to the other people. Like,
yeah.
what is their output? What are they eating? What calories are they on? Especially if, like, someone's on more calories than you and they're leaner, like, you can't be mad about those things.
Yeah.
But a competitive mindset to me feels quite positive, and I think that was a positive thing for me during prep because I'm, like, quite competitive with myself, and I just wanted to do better than the day previous because you know, you can see your goal and it's like if you're so passive about it, you might not necessarily be working as hard for it. Like, you want that drive every single day to get up and do better and push yourself as hard as you can.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that literally relays in my mind. It's like, I wonder if, like, I can cope with this better this day, or, like, I wonder if I can, like, push even harder and, like, chase my logbook and whatnot. So yeah, I understand that. The negative competitive, like, mindset side of everything. I feel like the person who said that, that's what they're referring to. Again, like, as we mentioned, everyone looks different on the show day than what they do on social media. Criteria, again, something else to keep in mind in regards to what people's actual, like, protocols look like in comparison to yours is you generally have no understanding of what their last, like, 5 years of their life have looked like.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know how long they've spent focusing on, like, really heavy health/improvement phases. They may get blood work done every 8 weeks. They may never miss a supplement. They may never miss a single beat with anything. They may just be, like, genetically gifted in, like, forms regarding that.
I was going to say, you might just be put on stage next to some, like, genetic muscle mummy.
And, like, everyone's different. Like, even when you compare, say, like, Marion and Effie, two of Michael's clients who both competed in fitness, they're both, like, the same height, same weight. Effie was doing, like, minimal cardio. Lowest she got in one of her preps was, like, 1,600 calories. And then Marion was, like, doing, like, total minutes, I don't know, something quite high, and then, like, eating sub 1,000. So you can't compare that. Like, you are just causing distress by consistently comparing that and just disrupting your piece. Like, you just get on with it. It doesn't matter what your coach sort of tells you what to do. There is literally nothing good that comes out of comparing what somebody else is doing to what you're doing, because you can't change it. Like, what are you going to do? See that somebody's eating 1,200, no, not 1,200, 2,000 calories, like, 16 weeks out and be like, oh, they're doing that, they look like that, let me do that.
You will look entirely different.
Yeah, but, like, say you've been on 1,600, you're not dropping anything, like, down you go.
Exactly. So this is a one-way street.
Yeah, literally. So I think there is no use in the competitive scene for comparison until maybe you, like, get to the Olympia and, like, things, like, you're that intense with sort of everything and you're literally comparing yourself in regards to, like, what other coaches are doing and what sort of the judges, like, are looking for, if you get what I mean. Like, you may compare maybe, like, shows, what, like, the judges are going for, whether they are going for a little bit of a softer look, whether or not they're going for a little bit of a harder look. But even in bikini, you see the lineup of, like, the top 5 Olympians, every single one of them looks different because bikini especially looks different on every single individual. You compare Laura Lee Chap to, say, like, Isa, they look vastly different, but they still meet the criteria.
Exactly.
Like, it just sits differently on each sort of individual person's body as well. And again, I think many people forget that too.
Yeah. And just touching on that, where you don't know what look the judges are going for and how it is quite different.
Yeah.
It's very different between federations as well.
Especially natural federations. gracious.
Especially.
No shit on the natural federations, but
There lacks a bit of consistency.
yeah. And like obviously between each natural federation, more specifically we're referring to like ICN, NBA and ANB, their criteria is slightly different.
Yeah.
I would say the most consistent judging wise, I don't even know. Not ICN. Not ICN. But like between the natural federations where you're jumping between like each show, it is quite difficult to sort of pick and choose what you need.
Yeah.
It is very easy to know like IFBB wise exactly what the criteria is.
Yeah.
There may be very minuscule changes between like softness, hardness, whatever. But otherwise it is quite difficult. Something else to be mindful of too is the fact that just because somebody places first doesn't mean that they necessarily 110% meet the criteria. So you could be reflecting on placings and being like, oh, she has this, she has that, I need to be this hard, but she may have just been the best on the day. It doesn't mean that you should be going for exactly what that person is.
100%. To give an example, like I competed in A and B, ICN and NBA all in the same season. And at A and B I placed quite well. Like, I don't remember what my placings were. But
First, and like a second.
more or less. But then 2 weeks later, I was at ICN. I placed, I think, third twice and fifth. And NBA was sort of like a mixture of both. I placed first in one lineup and then I think fourth or something like that in another. So your physique as it is, you might do better at one show because those judges are different. That federation is different and they judge the bikini criteria differently to say the next show you might be doing.
Yeah. Like it was very evident, for example, A and B appreciated a tie-in, whereas NBA didn't.
That luckily for me.
Yeah. Like I think first place didn't have a tie-in like whatsoever. Like NBA.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. ICN, too hard to gauge. I don't even really want to talk about ICN. I'm not an ICN hater. Made me... Crickets. No, I'm not a hater. I just, like, it is hard to navigate when, like, you have... Like, say Michael has clients competing and you just don't know what they're looking for because it is so inconsistent. So it makes the experience less enjoyable because it's like you go for what they've previously awarded and then like that isn't awarded. So it's just too wishy-washy.
And that's the thing, like it changes depending on the year, but also state.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's doing multiple state shows, good fucking luck to you.
I know. You know what? I would prefer to do the other states as opposed to Vic with ICN every single time. Yeah. The only thing is Queensland bikini girls, they pose so weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really looked.
I pose one of Michael's clients. Their front pose is really different. Their quarter turn poses as well mimic a lot more of like a transition T pose as opposed to having your knee angled the whole way around.
Yeah. Oh yes, I remember you showing me this.
And their front pose, they don't do the normal like bikini front pose.
No.
Yeah, it's just odd. But like conditioning wise and like quality wise, athletes generally interstate seem to be a little bit better. But yeah, show to show, it is quite difficult to navigate, especially like when it comes to peaking as well. Like if you're doing back-to-back shows, like you may realize after like your first show that like you have more that needs to come off and then you have such limited time. So there will also be some inconsistency within your physique within each individual week, especially as well if there are other variables like carbohydrate loading or whatnot that has been slightly adjusted compared to like previous peak weeks as well, which I think again is like another variable that interplays with everything. Something that I did want to touch on, and I feel like we should have probably started off with this, is in regards to like what we're going to do differently with our preps. Did someone ask that question before?
What was it? Already
I
forgotten.
feel like... Because that's what I posted on my story in regards to like what we were going to talk about.
Oh, I think it was, what are a few things you want people to know when it comes to prepping?
Okay, yeah. Something that I'm going to do different, and this is what I posted on my story, is how I look at food, my relationship with food, my habits around food.
Yeah.
My last prep, I was eating cookies, I was doing all of that shit. I had like stockpiled amounts of food for baking, not like to eat post-show. But like stockpiled amounts of like baking goods and whatnot. I would stand in the supermarket and look for like ideas of like things I could bake and everything like that. I would watch endless like recipe videos and everything on that front. That I will not do this time around.
Yeah.
And I think something that's super interesting is pause this podcast just for 1 second. James, that camera's dead. Something that's super, thanks James, something that's super interesting is that even, it was my mum's birthday yesterday and I had been looking at recipes on Instagram to cook for her, and just instantly I felt, oh, like that would be yum, and then I found myself thinking food a little bit more, which prior to that, it didn't even come into my brain. Like anytime I saw anything food related, I would instantly like get it off my screen.
Yeah.
Like, and then after this Christmas, like I have 2 Christmases in which I have to cook stuff for. After that, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not cooking a thing aside from my meal preps. No food that I like is not on my meal plan in my house. I'm not stockpiling anything. I didn't stockpile anything to like eat post show last show anyways.
Yeah, no.
But
I swear, like, everyone becomes a baker during prep.
yeah, I wanted to open my own freaking cookie company and my own bakery. I used to bring cookies to the gym and hand them out to people at the gym.
Like, let me watch you eat it. Tell me how it tastes.
Literally. And everyone loved them too. But yeah, that's what I'm not going to do. I think if you go into prep and you find yourself obsessing over food, I can almost guarantee you it's going to make your reversal period harder. It is going to worsen worsen your relationship with food, especially post-show.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, like in prep, food is purely energy. You do not seek gratification from it. You do not seek dopamine hits from it. You do not seek pleasure from food in prep, because the minute you stop prepping, floodgates open and you will like, from these constant hits of like YouTube reel or whatever, Instagram reels, looking at food and whatnot, you're like, fuck, I'm going to make that. I'm going to eat this. And then you realize that like you get the same feeling from it.
Exactly.
Like in prep, like I don't care if this sounds disordered, because you would not start a prep if you mentally were not in the right place with food anyways. Like you should not be prepping. But food is nothing to do with pleasure, and it should not be anything to do with pleasure. It is purely fuel. It is purely supporting the process, and the more emotion you tie into food in prep, the worse you're going to become.
Exactly. I was going to say, you don't want to be building any like emotional connection with food whatsoever while you're prepping, because when you do go to do your reverse, you got to remember, like I said, like that mental block is gone.
Yeah. There's like, especially if it's your first time, there's no boundary there.
Yeah.
Electric fence has been turned off.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not planning on competing for another 2 years?
You're like,
it's like,
I can eat whatever I want.
Apron on, feast is on. Yeah.
Don't stand in the supermarket. Don't go down aisles you don't need to. You know?
That was one thing. When I finished my prep, I'm pretty sure it was like the next day, my mum was going to the Coles and she was like, all right, I'm going to go get my stuff. You go do what you need to do. This is the day after I finished my prep, and I was just standing there like, I have no idea what to do in this place if I'm not like just getting my prep food. I was like, it was like you'd lost your mum in the supermarket.
Yeah, literally. I think as well it's super handy, telling people like not to buy you food, don't make you food, don't bring food post-show.
Yes.
It's easier just not to have it there. If you want it, you go out and get it.
Yeah.
Don't have it readily available. And again, I know this sounds extreme, but if you're playing an extreme sport that will inevitably have extreme ramifications on your health if you do really fuck up the reversal process, I'm talking not put on a couple extra kilos. Like some people really fuck it and do worse to their health. It's just not worth it's not worth having it there.
Yeah.
Like
the food is not that incredible.
literally, nothing actually tastes that good. That's what I realized.
Actually,
nothing gives you, and like you realize that it's like the food doesn't even taste that good. It's more so the comfort, having something to directly ease a stressor or like provide comfort. The actual food itself, you go there and you're like, you know what? I would have felt better if I did half an hour cardio than eating that fucking Snickers.
There was so many times where I was like, oh, fuck, that was a bit disappointing. I thought it would be this amazing thing.
Oh my God, me too. I remember we had like tacos and I'm like, oh, these are nowhere good. Like, nowhere near as good as I thought they were.
Yeah.
But like, I remember I had a banana at the back end of prep and it was like, the best thing I've ever eaten in my whole life.
God. In prep, everything tastes amazing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Hate oats in prep, love them.
Anything with any sort of flavor, love it.
Yeah, literally. But no, like you will come to realize that like food is always going to be there. You can use food to celebrate like when you're outside of prep and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like me and Michael were actually having this conversation, I think 2 days ago on our way to go Christmas shopping. Nothing feels as good as sticking to the plan. And I know that sounds borderline. Nothing feels as good as skinny. Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But like, it's like nothing tastes as good as like improving your self-belief and self-esteem because you know that you can stick to a plan. It has nothing to do with getting skinny. It's showing yourself that like you can show up for yourself and like you can have a plan and you can stick to it.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
Gosh, whatever I was going to say just went directly out of my head. But
I hate that when it happens on the podcast because then it's like, do we just like sit here and like
wait for it to come back?
No one can like see us. They can only like hear us if they're listening on Spotify. So they're like, oh, why is there a break?
Skip.
Yeah, literally.
I was going to say, Michael, every time I sort of like have a dinner or something, he's like, where are you going? And if it's with my dad, like it's not going to be something fucking fancy. He'll just like pick something like Urban Grooves or grilled, which we'll come back to.
I have a new appreciation for grilled, not gonna lie.
Thank you. I feel supported right now.
I had it as my last meal before prep and I thought, oh, it's gonna be shit. It was so good. It didn't make me feel like an absolute ass afterwards.
For context, everyone, for the context, if you don't follow me on Instagram, on my... Okay, so we thought I was ending at ICN, my second show. Yeah. So Taya and I went out for...
Shout out Taya.
Shout out to Taya.
She's probably listening.
She's probably like fist bumping right now. Yeah. We were like, yeah, we'll go get burgers after. And it was a Sunday night, I think. So like nothing's fucking open. We were just like, fine, we'll go to Grilled. And then we were like perfectly happy with that decision, whatever. Next day, Michael is giving me so much shit for choosing Grilled over like something super fancy and decadent.
And you know what? That is so funny because we actually went to Grilled. Michael went to Grilled like, it was probably like 6 or like 8 weeks ago. And he was like, oh, this is actually good.
Oh, is it now? See where he goes after he finishes cutting. Anyway, shout out to Grilled. Sponsor the podcast. We'll hype you up.
30 weeks. Sponsor the podcast, not now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed that. We will continue to do like girly only episodes as well.
Yeah. We've got a lot of topics.
Probably some like TMI topics as well.
Oh yeah, there's one I was gonna bring up, but maybe we'll save it for next time.
Yeah, let's do like a TMI podcast.
Oh yeah. If you guys have any questions, definitely hit us with them on... Is it on Instagram?
I guess so, wherever.
Yeah.
Any hoosies, thanks everyone for listening and have a wonderful Christmas.